Now I'm going to hand it over to Tosca, who's going to share on relationships.
Okay, all right.
20 minutes over to you.
Okay. Thank you, young Ross. My name's Tosca. I'm an addict. I'm also addicted to misery, self-pity, taking myself far too seriously. Arsenal Football Club and Haribo. Addicted to Haribo. Relationship. I've never done a chair on relationships, but I think it's kind of apt for me right now. And what I will say is that my first, what I love about NA is that, I've been clean since July the 28th, 1996. So I've been clean for 29 years and some change. And in that time, lots of stuff has happened to me. I've had money, not had money, been around the world, duvet dive for 6 weeks at a time. Nearly got arrested in Selfridges for having a fight in a car park at 11 years clean. Literally, it's been a lot of this and that. But the thing that's always right-sized me has been the programme. And the programme's ability to to hold me. I kind of think of myself as being a bit like a Tasmanian devil, wearing dervish, like nuts. But the programme's always kind of been there. And I would say that, and Living Clean's a really interesting book, and I can remember getting the Norse version of it in 2011, my sponsor, who's still my sponsor, which is an interesting relationship, as relationships go. I remember getting it, and page 93 of it says that not to have a relationship in your first year, it's literally written down, people sort of skirt around it and the rest of it, but it's actually in the literature, which I do try and point out to people. And my journey around, all of this stuff, especially, when I think about relationships, and in the book it sort of talks about, sort of the three areas, which are, friendship, fellowship, family, and what I'll say is that, I've been challenged recently. I've sort of been challenged recently about, meetings I go to, what I do, what I don't do, and all of that sort of stuff. And it's, and what I'll say about relationships is that I never had relationships until I got into recovery. Yeah, I just, used to just grunt at people, we'd be in the same vicinity. Do you know what I mean? That sort of thing. A relationship is, I think if you read it in a dictionary, it's in relation to someone else. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, how do you relate to someone else? How do you show up for someone else? And it's, I often share, I've been married in recovery, divorced in recovery, I've got children, that sort of stuff. My kids, they can sort of say, Dad, and I'll be sitting there and go, oh, yeah, shit, talking to me. Do you know what I mean? I'm their dad, right, okay. Where do we go now, kids? Do you know what I mean? And they're big people now, do you know what I mean? And it's kind of like, I come from this sort of self-centered place, right? I come from a place that is sort of me, and, and kind of losing that. And this book's really sort of helped with that. It's really helped in the fact that, and also another relationship is my relationship with God, which is kind of like the most important. And, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk about where I'm at, and that might lead you to sort of surmise, what that has to do with relationships. So we've got a lot of stuff going on, right? Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on, and and there's people that are flying flags, and people that believe this, and there's people that believe that, and blah blah blah, and all this sort of stuff, right? So what I sort of realised for myself was that I need to take a side. I need to say, do you know what? This is who I am, right? Yeah. Rather than sort of making excuses for other people's behaviour. It's like, people can have an opinion, right? They really can. Their opinion can be completely different to mine. right? But what I've sort of realised, for me, I've got to take a side. And taking that side means a real effect on lots of my relationships. It does. It sort of means to me that, so what do I really want to be, right? Yeah. What do I really want to be? And, and it kind of plays into this kind of role of, well, for me, of my character defects, right? Yeah. And one of my character defects is I can be really insincere, yeah, and I can take the path of least resistance. I work with people that realistically I wouldn't sit down and have something to eat with. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's not really, you know what I mean? We do not see eye to eye. And I sort of thought to myself when I look at, when I looked at that, and that's kind of, and it also talks in the book about, your relationship with the fellowship, right? Yeah, and my relationship with the fellowship has changed. My relationship with the fellowship has changed because I used to think you're one of me, I'm one of you. Do you know what I mean? We're all walking towards the same path, and do you know what I mean? We don't shoot our wounded. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, at least politics and colour and creed, but what I've learned is that some people aren't like that, right? Yeah? Some people are not like that. And I can, in which I'm prone to doing, right? Yeah. I can be prone to go, you know what, fuck, it's all right. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, that's kind of okay, and the rest of it. But I sort of realised that I want to be a bit more authentic than that. Do you know what I mean? I want to kind of strip another layer of myself. Do you know what I mean? I want to be, because let's get this right, yeah? And I don't mean this disrespectfully, right, yeah? If one of us is going to use, right, yeah? If God came down now and said one of us is going to use, I pray it was one of you. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm here, right, yeah? I'm here, to be a better me. Do you know what I mean? I'm not here to tell people what to do, what not to do, all of that sort of stuff. I want better relationships and a better life for me, right? That's what I want. That's what I come here for. And a lot of the time when I think about it, right, yeah, I've sold myself short, right? And and it was, and so I kind of got this thing, right, yeah, that all this stuff's happening. I sit down with someone, and I thought, yeah, fuck it, yeah, I've got to choose a side. So I choose a side. And then me and this guy, who's in the program, we start to speak about someone that is totally authentic. He sort of says, X is totally authentic. And I thought, so, you know what, you're fucking right. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And what this guy's like, and we all work in the same field, if someone comes to him and says, do Y, yeah, he'll do a deep dive on it, and it doesn't matter how much they're going to pay him or do whatever. He will turn around and say, do you know what? I ain't going to do that. Sorry. And me and my other pal used to snigger and that sort of stuff and the rest of it. And what I sort of realised was that there's a consequence for living your life the way that he does, right? And there's a consequence for living life the way I do. I don't know what his consequence is. But I want to, I think it's kind of time for that for me, or at least an attempt at it. And part of that is shedding certain relationships. Sort of saying, you know what, it can't happen between me and you anymore. And as much as I want to kind of not rock the boat and play both ends against the middle and all that sort of nonsense, it's kind of like I just want to feel the other side of it. Do you know what I mean? And it's, and I think about my relationship with my family, especially I speak about the relationship with my family and my mum, for example. And, and I've, and there's a saying, do the next right thing, do you know what I mean? And sort of, and that's what I've done over the nearly 30 years that I've kind of been clean. And there has been, a massive change. There's been like a massive shift. There's been a massive change. And it's, and it's a bit like, my mum changed her will recently, right? Which was kind of quite funny, right? She changed her will. But you can't change a will if you've got another will, right? Yeah. You have to bring the old will into the solicitors to be destroyed, yeah? So she brought her old will in, which was written in 1988, yeah? And she wants to write a new will, and she wants me to be executor of the will, blah, 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 this, my kids to get, a chunk of her estate and all this and blah, blah, blah. This, that's what we kind of, that's what she's telling me and my siblings. And then, she said we've got to go to the briefs and take the old will with her, right? So we take the old will, and I'm not in the old will. Do you know what I mean? It's like the old will. It's like it's fucking embarrassing. You know what I mean? It's like I'm not in. I didn't even. You know what I mean? I didn't know about the old will. Didn't know what was going and blah 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 and that sort of stuff. And it was kind of like it was quite funny. You know what I mean? It's like my brother, my sister, me no, my stepdad, me no will. You know what I mean? Nothing for nada for me. And I think to myself, my relationship with my mum is all about that, putting your best, doing the next right thing, turning up when you don't want to, all that sort of stuff, blah, 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 right? And what happened is that, this beauty of the programme, and what happened was that while we're in the solicitors, I went to the toilet. And as I was coming back, I heard her say to the solicitors, you know what? For the last 20 years, he's turned up every week. When it was COVID, he was, he came every week. He was always there, blah, 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 blah. And I heard her say that to the solicitor. Now, I wasn't doing that. My higher power and this program was doing that. Do you know what I mean? I don't go into this stuff thinking this is a really fucking good idea to drive right across London and see my mum and do this stuff. But I kind of understood, because this is like, it's a program, right? A program is like you're programmed to do stuff. Do you know what I mean? So that is what you do. But what I've sort of realised is I want more from that relationship. I want more authenticity. Do you know what I mean? It's got me to, I've kind of got to a point with it all, right? Yeah. But I still feel that there's something about me, right, that isn't quite fulfilling what I kind of need to do. And this sort of breaching this sort of thing and saying this is the side I'm on, kind of feels like, and it talks about, in the Living Clean, it talks about, your family relationships, and my family relationships are fantastic. They're really, really good. I have a really good time with my kids, ex-wife, blah, blah, all of that sort of stuff. And it's, my daughter sent me a text the other day that was like, she just slagged the fuck off me, out of me. She said, you need to respect my choices, blah, 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 this, and this, and this, and this. And what I really wanted to say, listen here, you little cunt. Do you know what I mean? Who the fuck do you think you are? Blah, blah, fucking like that. But what I wrote is, okay, you're right. Yeah, okay, you're right, and I won't go down that road. And whatever you need to do, I'll support you, because I've been programmed in the right way. Do you know what I mean? And that for me is kind of priceless, to be able to get the gap to kind of make a decision on, around a lot of this stuff. And, and it talks about, and it all talks about friendship and that sort of stuff. And my friends, right, some of the things I've found myself, some of the things I've talked to my friends are really about my vulnerability. They are about my prostate. They are about, not being great in the sack anymore. They are about not having any libido. They are about what it's like to be a man. Do you know what I mean? People that I've kind of grown up with, that have been 25, 30 years kind of doing this stuff, and we're going through that same stuff. And the intimacy, and like they say, intimacy, the intimacy is, this is who I really am. This is who I really am, and it ain't fucking great for me. Do Do you know what I mean? Or it is, and how do I work with that, and what does that happen? You know, I had a fantastic discussion with someone in the program about erectile dysfunction the other day, right? Yeah, and he's got pictures of this and that and blah blah blah, and it was like so fucking liberating, right? To be able to come over the parapet and say, do you know what? I don't actually fucking know it all. Do you know what I mean? It's not about some sort of bravado. It's really about being me. It's really fucking important. You know, it's really, really important. You know, Ros knows this, but last year I had a stroke, right? Yeah, I had a stroke. And no one really expects to have a stroke in the 50s. And, I'm like, cool. And what it taught me, well, I don't know if it fucking taught me anything, but what I realised, right, yeah, is, you know, I sort of got up and realised there was something going off in my head. And the really interesting thing about something going off in your head, it's not like going off in your ankle or your arm. In your ankle, you kind of go like that, or you do that. When it's going off in your head, you think, what the fuck is going on? Mm. And then the next thing I thought is that life is really temporary. Mm. Yeah? And all these fucking plans I've made, right? Yeah? I'm always fucking planning. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to be this, and I'm going to do that, and some plan. It's all a load of shit. Do you know what I mean? It's all a load of shit. You've got no fucking control over that. And and I didn't really know, to be really honest with you, right, yeah, what I needed to do, right? I kind of knew that. There are certain practical things that I could do, you know, like, so all of a sudden when that happens, ownership becomes really pointless. What's the point of owning anything? Do you know what I mean? So, what's the fucking point? You know, so, you know, and so, you know, I bequested things to my daughters and blah, blah, and all this sort of stuff, and did some of the practical things. But the thing that I never, until this sort of part of the process, until I got to this sort of part of the process, the thing I didn't realise, what I really needed to do, was I just needed to be an authentic me. Do you know what I mean? I needed that. And in respect of that, right, yeah, in respect of my relationships have to change. Because if I am being authentically me, there's certain things that can't carry on anymore. And I have to be sort of liberated enough to sort of say, do you know what? I fucking love you, do you know what I mean? But you believe something, you believe it, right? Yeah, you believe something. And I respect your opinion, but not your beliefs. And that's a totally different thing. And with that, you know, I've sort of realised what, you know, recovery is sort of led itself into, you know, initially it's about not, you know, initially it's about not using. Then it's about, you know, romance and finance and my ego and sorting that sort of stuff. Then it's about, you know, finding sort of a place in the world and kind of being okay with that. Do you know what I mean? It says in step 7 in that book, you know, do you believe you can remove all your shortcomings? I say no. Try, no, fuck that, no, I don't believe you can. And what I think to myself now is, a day at a time, maybe I can. You know, and if I, you know, challenge myself to do it, see what that's like, see what the other side is like. Like I said to you initially, I've got this guy in my life that lives his life with pure authenticity, pure. Do you know what I mean? He does that way. I don't know what it's like to feel that way. So there's a, you know, like I say, there's a cost for doing it, and there's a cost for not doing it. All I have is the cost for not doing it. I want to try to experience the cost of doing it, and that in itself is, you know, it has to start with the relationships I have. It has to start with the fellowship. You know, it's beautiful. It's funny because I didn't know anything about this meeting. I'm driving along. I'm talking to someone. You know, and he said, you know what, we should start a meeting. We should start a meeting for people over 15 years clean. I was trying to, okay, that sounds like a good idea. And, you know, you're doing it here. But it's kind of like, meetings I go to, parts of the fellowship, I only do service at group level. I rotate in and out at group level. That's what I do. Maybe that needs to change. Do you know what I mean? I need to look at what my relationship with, with the fellowship is, and there's lots of other stuff which I hope to find by, enacting this new sort of part of me. And I'll just kind of end on this. It's kind of like, it's a bit off the subject, but it's not. It's kind of like, if someone turned around and said to me, what's been, the key thing, in recovery or trying to recover, trying to be the best you can be, but, trying to do the best you can do, the rest of it, is find someone to get honest with. That's what I'd say. Is find someone to get honest with. It's not my sponsor. I can be really honest with my sponsor, and I have to say that he's got me out of lots and lots of scrapes. And he says to me, you've got to make amends to that person. I say, really, that cunt? I've got to fucking make amends to him? No fucking way. And he go, you know what, you got to fucking do it. And and I've done it, and I've got some sort of relief from it. But when I've been acting out, and when I haven't been doing what I've been needing to do, and the rest of it, I've managed to be able to get on the phone to someone who's been the same person for about 15 years. And say, you know what, I've been at it today. I've been doing that. Do you know what I mean? I like this girl. We were talking the other day. I was flying around with a birthday present for a girl, that I should have nothing to do with in the boot of my car for about 3 years. And I sort of said, you know what, I saw that birthday present the other day. And he said, what the fuck are you doing still and having that? Because as an addict, I like to keep my back doors open. I do like to keep my back doors open. But sharing that with him, just like openly turning around and saying, you know what, I found it in the boot of the car. He said, you need to fucking get rid of it. There's part of me that doesn't want to tell him that stuff. There's part of me that, that thinks I've parked up in the corner. I'm starting to ramble there. I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tosca. Thanks, Tosca.